Just like looking. You can say hi, Sergeant. Um, yeah. So
official cameo.
yeah, first official cameo on the show. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Knockturnal Movie Club. I'm joined by my esteemed hosts, Jake King and Ethan Singh. We are reviewing WandaVision episode 7. Crazy. Ethan, break it down for us, please.
For sure. We open up right away, and this week's sitcom is Modern Family. And we open up with Wanda in bed by herself after a crazy night, someplace I'm sure we all have been before. She remembers everything that went down before with Vision literally dying and coming back to life, her blowing out the hex way further out than it should have been, and so on. And as she wakes up, her two kids are very, playing with each other, and they want her attention, and she's not giving them any. And eventually she comes down and she says, you guys expect me to have all the answers, but the truth is I don't have any. I have none. And that's very much foreshadowing what we've been thinking, what we end up getting to later on this episode. Then we cut to Vision, who wakes up in a carnival, tries to figure out what's going on, and he finds Darcy. And for some reason, he knows who this person is, probably because of the email. And then he snaps her out of the illusion, and the two embark on a journey to get to Wanda. Their road trip is a little uneventful. They try to drive out there. They're hit with roadblocks from the environment. Everything from a red light that won't change to a red light that broke down to now a school of children walking across the street. Then the Vision finally forgets it and just flies off, and his whole arc ends this episode. And then in the real world, we have Monica and Jimmy working with the rest of SWORD, or an army agency related with SWORD, not sure what the relationship is, to get the mobile bunker that she's been requesting to move into the Hex. The mobile bunker, the truck, whatever you want to call it, the rover, fails to do so. Monica says, I'm strong enough to do it on my own. And we get the big reveal that she now does, in fact, have powers. There's a moment where she gets a really nice confronting her feelings about losing her mother, which is nice. And she becomes that superhero, almost like superhero on wheels, getting through it really, really fast, a drive-through version of finding out you have powers. Wanda, as she's starting to feel more and more depressed, and we get a commercial for depression, lends her kids to Agnes to watch for the rest of the day. And Monica, now a superhero, breaks through, runs to Wanda, and asks her to trust her, to believe her that what's going on is a big plan to get Vision back, and that Wanda needs to prove she's not the villain here, and that SWORD is. Agnes comes, breaks up the little party very quickly, brings her back, and once back at Agnes's place, our first glimpse to that creepy house, Wanda wonders where her kids are. She goes into the basement, and as in any basement, she finds things she's not supposed to. In this case, a giant magical fortress. And we get the big reveal that after all this time, Agatha's been behind everything.
And she even killed the dog.
She even killed the dog.
I mean, I thought Agatha Harkness's intro, where she did her own little show intro, was so flipping cool, cute, and it was just like, yes, we all knew. Everyone knew she was Agatha Harkness going into this show.
Especially you, OJ.
I did, especially me. But it was finally cool just to get that like confirmation that it was her, and then see her go full on evil. Because like in the comics, she's also in the gray area. She's been a mentor to Wanda. She's been, she's been good and bad in the comics. But here they're going full on villain with her, and I think it's awesome. We got to see her powers in action. She's like, the only magical girl in town, and she's been pulling the strings the whole time. The only question left is whether or not someone's pulling her strings. What's her motive here? Clearly the motive is she wants these kids, but for what? So there's a couple questions here. We still don't know who Evan Peters is really playing. He's definitely not Pietro, as confirmed by Vision and Wanda in the show.
Mm-hmm.
So a few questions here. We got a great Monica Rambeau origin story in the process, which is awesome. She's now Photon. it's gonna be a big light show. We got Agatha and her purple power that looks just like Wanda's, which is interesting. Because although it's still magic, it still looks nothing like Doctor Strange's magic. We also have Photon now in the mix, and what the hell her powers are gonna look like. It's gonna be an amazing light show, and I can't wait.
And I think we saw one big reveal. We still don't know who Agnes or Agatha Harkness's husband, quote unquote, is. And I think that's the big reveal we've all been waiting for. That's the last thing to blow, but I think so far decent. Last episode was the close of Act 2, and this episode was very, very textbook opening of Act 3.
Well, I suspect for either this next episode or the final episode might be an hour, a little over an hour long, because when Feige announced the show, he promised us over 3 hours of footage, and we yet to hit that 3 hour mark yet. So with only 2 episodes left, either these final 2 episodes might be hour long each, or that final episode, the finale, might be like movie level long, and it's gonna be like CGI spectacular.
And of that hour-long runtime, 30 minutes are going to be credits.
I'm so glad we haven't taken a dig at that yet, have we? About how long the credit scenes are,
And that's including the opening logo.
Oh, it's also
Yeah.
a funny thing about credits. We also finally got an end credit scene, which we, in typical MCU style, we've been waiting on. We haven't got an end credit scene yet, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
You know what's interesting? I had a feeling it was coming up because I saw Evan Peters was credited in the cast, but he barely appeared in the episode. So I'm like, there has to be a following theme.
I completely missed the after credit scene. I didn't even notice because I've been trying to wait for the past 6 episodes to find one. Haven't seen any. I didn't know that. Could you break down what happened there?
So Monica ends up walking over to the house because in the episode we saw like she started walking over, but it cut away. So we finally get to see her go to the cellar doors. She opens it up and she sees like there's purple like stuff all around, basically her magic. And then Evan Peters as Pietro comes up right behind and kidnaps her. What was it that he said, OJ?
Like he was something like Snoopers are gonna snoop or something like called like a snooper or something like that. But what I couldn't tell at the end was whether or not her eyes were going purple or not. I wasn't sure if Agatha already started controlling her or not. I couldn't tell, but she definitely wasn't using her new photon powers. But I wasn't sure if her eyes were a little purpley, and I don't think they were. But obviously, she will be down in the basement as well next episode. And then I'm wondering how powerful is Agnes really? Is she able? I don't know if it's a question of how powerful Agnes is, or if more of a question of like she's more in control of her powers versus like Wanda.
Well, I mean, going back to the commercial was for pills for depression. And so it was basically like there was like kind of like a hidden message behind that of giving into it. And so I think Agnes's influence was having Wanda surrender her powers. So it has to be her feeding off of Wanda's energy.
And also, I think canonically, Agatha should be super old. Like, I think at this point, she should be about 13,000 years old, if I'm not wrong. So I think intelligence and experience are going to play in 13,000 versus 30 years old is a huge difference.
Yeah.
Going back to the witches, did you notice she said, "I bit a kid once"?
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, that was a good point. Yeah.
She did beat a kid once. And, witches have a really complicated history with children. And so it's a lot of things they're playing on here, which are really cool. And even her husband being her familiar, witches are known to have familiars. So it's a lot of cool things Marvel is doing with this whole storyline.
Yeah. You know, it feels like going back to what we were saying about the post-credit scene, it almost felt like, because now it's starting to feel like Marvel, like including the after-credit scene. So it almost felt like these episodes were kind of like weaning us back onto the Marvel formula in a way after fatigue.
Definitely.
That's a great point. Overall, like this episode was super strong. I mean, it was a big letdown. There was so many theories online about who was Monica going to meet, and then we get the soldiers, and I was like, oh, okay.
Is yours, Johnny?
It was definitely like not what we expected, but it was like okay. But it was so many theories about who she was gonna meet, and it just ended up being a bunch of soldiers.
Yeah, it still kind of works.
Yeah, you know, it was a really good moment that I liked in this when Monica Rambeau like literally breaks the wall and gets right back into the realm.
Oh,
Like you see like
beautiful!
all different versions of her in the show,
Oh,
just like
it was a
superimposed
beautiful
back and
sequence.
front.
Like I'll have to watch that like 3 more times. It's such a
Yeah.
gorgeous sequence of how she finally breaks through and now she has her official photon.
Yeah,
I
I
have
like how
to-
they incorporated like the young version of her saying these things, like all the lines
Yes.
from Captain Marvel. That was a great incorporation.
The benefits of world building, my friends. DC, take notes,
DC
please.
needs to learn.
Oh my gosh, we have
And
to
you know
talk
what's
about
funny?
DC
It's like
later.
it's like the feeling that I wanted to have when I was watching Captain Marvel, when I saw her becoming powerful. Like that was the feeling that I was waiting for, and I got it with Monica Rambeau.
Yeah,
You know?
we definitely got it with Monica Rambeau. I'm so happy that they gave her powers now, so we don't have to spend that time in Captain Marvel 2 doing all that. And then come Captain Marvel 2, she's just going to be like ready to go. Between her and Kamala Khan, it's going to be insane.
But here's my negative, because I really like that scene. I don't want to discredit that scene. I did felt it was too short. I felt it was way too quick. And I'm sure they're probably going to build up on it more. But just in case they don't, we have that in that scene. She gets all these voices, and she thinks back to all the stuff that led up to her. Now it's sort of like that "don't back down, don't give up" moment. You're now step into this role of being a hero, and she kind of does that without addressing any of those moments, just using it as fuel to push on. It would have been nice to see either those scenes fully realized in like ghosts in the side instead of just frames in the background. But I thought it could have been a little bit better. I felt like it was a little bit of either a cut budget or a cut time. And
It was definitely a cut time, but also like they built that into the story where she didn't have time to address it, where she
Yeah.
like literally has to like a race against time to go save Wanda.
That's true.
But
That's a fair point.
Yeah. Also, like in that amount of time, like aesthetically, it was very overwhelming. Like all the colors, all the flashing, and then
Yeah.
that full-on frontal view of like when all I didn't hit my mic. When the world comes into full view, when she's not stuck in between anymore, like that was such an awe-inspiring image. And also I
That's
like
true.
there was actually a really cool visual nod to 2001: A Space Odyssey when she's first
Good
trying to
point.
go in there within the tank and you see the lights reflected in her space helmet.
That's a good point. Yeah, that was very much influenced by that. In retrospect, that's true.
Yeah. It was
Space Odyssey, but also the little Fantastic Four, of how they get their
Yeah.
powers in the space suits and all that
Correct.
stuff. So it definitely had like into that
Hmm.
as well. So I mean, but overall, Monica was definitely a highlight for me for this whole. And even Vision and Darcy scenes were really fun and cute, and their interaction and banter I thought was great.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, when Vision's like Wanda's doing all these things to stop me, and then what you call it, the traffic light goes out or something, and like Vision just like breaks the fourth wall, looks at the camera, like I was laughing my ass off.
Man, I love the part when he was getting interviewed and he goes, "What am I even doing here? Why am I doing this? I have superpowers. I can fly." And then he just takes off.
Yeah, but that
I
actually also illustrates something very interesting because someone else I saw pointed it out, how like the interviews are kind of used to show someone's inner thoughts, and like right after he steps up in the interview, it's like he's still in the truck and he takes off.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like this time I felt like they hit the mark when they were like emulating the sitcom style. Like
Yeah.
this time I felt like they fully realized it.
Yeah, it was a mix of like The Office meets Modern Family. I think sitcom wise, what they were going for. And I didn't recognize where the intro came from though, but someone I saw pointed online that was like happy endings.
Yeah, that was something that the Russo brothers were involved in.
Interesting. That makes sense. Because I was going to mention that. I mean, this episode you mentioned before that it feels so much like a regular Marvel film. I think a large part of that is because Marvel films often follow sitcom structure, modern sitcom structure. I mean, if we think of the last 2 Avengers movies, they were directed by guys that did Arrested Development. So they kind of know how to do this thing pretty properly about 3 parallel stories that are eventually going to become interwoven. And it feels great like that.
I know it cheapens it to say it, but if we think about it, the MCU is one long show.
Yeah,
It's really
it really is.
really long TV show that spans like a lot of years. But that's how it is. It's structured that way.
Yeah, do you think we're gonna get an explanation of why they chose TV shows with us?
I think what I assumed was Wanda learned English, and like a lot of immigrants, they learn English and about American culture ways through TV shows, like in their country. So I figured that was what she had learned, and that's why she was going in through that way. My assumption.
I think you're right. I think that's like artistically what they were going for, but I think just as a plot device, they kind of used the TV as a way of seeing what's in the hex because they needed a way of visualizing what's going on, and they kind of use your rationale about like this is how she used to picture things in an idealized world, and kind of mix it with, well, how do we see what's going on in a world we literally cannot see into? I think that's how they figured it out.
There's so many hexagons in this show.
Oh yeah, I've seen people actually even draw comparisons that there's a queen bee introduction coming in, or some sort of hive mind type of deal going on.
Maybe. I mean, but we also learned, like, we also saw in Agatha's house, it was very hexagon heavy, and hexagon to all. She's the hexagon person, so
And
I guess we'll find out more.
Also, the hexagons on Wanda's quilt when she's in bed, like in some of them, like actually going over each other.
No, they're everywhere. They're on the cups the boys were drinking. They're everywhere.
Yeah, and even to your point, they were on the covers. They were on Vision's pillow, but they weren't on her pillow.
Hmm.
I thought that was unique.
Yes, they were, which is probably why Vision is not under anyone's spell, but also he's a robot, so.
Vision's a unique one. I'm curious where his character is going to go because he's still trying to figure it out as we are about, is he alive? Is he dead? What state is he in? Why doesn't he have his memories? All of that.
It's true, and we saw that Hayward, we figured out what Hayward's plan, which we all knew, was he's trying to turn Vision into a weapon.
Wanda was actually rescuing his body, not stealing it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I suspect next episode we'll get that flashback of who told her to get his body, all that stuff, and so because somebody did, because we still don't know.
This is why I don't do shit for family, man.
Redo that one, OJ.
Feige alert.
Oh.
Oh, not the mother.
Yes.
I mean, we still don't know who if someone's controlling Hayward, because there's still two villains here at play. We have the science villain with Hayward and whatever the hell he's trying to do with Vision, and then clearly someone's trying to do something with Wanda and her twins. So there's still a lot of questions here to be answered.
The twins are going to play such an interesting role as I've been learning more about their comic book character backgrounds and what pivotal role they're eventually going to be playing into, and where they are now. I think Agatha has a plan for them. It's kind of early to tell what that exactly is, or if someone like Mephisto is going to be truly behind everything.
Well, in the comics, that's why people are so they were used to bring Mephisto to life. You know,
right.
the shards of his soul. So I mean, but clearly the twins are also not going anywhere. Like
Exactly.
Twins are here to stay. But I'm curious to see how they aged up and who they cast. Ultimately, is going to be exciting too. They're going to be big roles further in the MCU.
Huge roles, yeah.
I'm suspecting they cast unknowns because they've been going. The Young Avengers have been a lot, with the exception of maybe Haley Steinfeld and Catherine Newton or Cassie Lang, but Kamala Khan unknown, American Chavez, who's been cast in Doctor Strange too. So we'll see, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Yeah, it's that third act finale. They're getting into it. They're setting it up to bring it down.
Definitely the super big third act finale. I can't wait. What do you rate this on a 1 to 10 scale? Go ahead, Jake.
I forgot. Last time I gave it like a 6, right? Last episode.
Yes, I think
this
so.
one, I think I would give it a 7.5 out of 10 because I really loved Monica's scene. Vision actually stood out to me a lot in this one, and I felt the sitcom plot worked the best, I would say, in this episode. So 7.5.
I'm fully on board with that. I'm giving it a 7.5. I think that's perfectly where this episode is. What does Marvel do best? They stick to the book, textbook screenwriting, textbook storytelling. Do I have any faults with this storytelling? No. Could the script be better? Yeah, to get to a 10, sure, but it's a good episode. Nothing to complain about here.
And I will go ahead and agree with you guys. 7.5. I think episode 8 will be an 8. And the finale, I think we're hopefully going to get that 10. Definitely. Oh.
And post credits will be a 5.
Post credits will be a 5.
The question is what they're going to set up in post credits. Are they setting up Spider-Man 3 or are they setting up Doctor Strange 2 or both? We'll see. But like I told you before. Oh yeah, that too.
Oh, true.
Which is premiering like next month. Which is I guess that'll be our next weekly. Our next weekly show. Shit, I thought we were getting a break. We got to do Falcon and Winter Soldier coming out.
You're gonna have to hit up Kevin Feige and ask for these free Disney Plus memberships, bro.
Oh.
But
So
I will
much.
say the intro for our Falcon and Winter Soldiers is going to be one intro each one.
Ooh. Yes.
Make it a good one, Jay.
Definitely.
And that concludes our episode of the Knockturnal Movie Club. We will be back next week reviewing episode 8. Hope you guys will be there with us. See you then. All right, later, guys.